Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the rundown. Things are, in the words of 𝐒𝐨𝐿𝐼𝐻, getting a little froggy, so we're going to go over this nice and slow. It gets a little complicated, but it is important. I had intended we were obviously going to do a show today. So much has changed in the last 24 hours, but at this point, we basically had to go live now, and we'll probably end up doing another show before the Ask Dorito. Anyways, so where do we stand relative to our previous show? Judge 𝐍𝐢𝐜𝐴𝐤, who was put on the bench by Donald Trump, issued an order on Saturday saying that the Oregon National Guard could not be deployed in Portland. Now, she was very clear in her order, and we covered what the order said quite explicitly, which was a long list of reasons why they couldn't do it. And it wasn't because they were the Oregon National Guard. It was because you couldn't deploy National Guard for the reasons Trump was giving. The reasons were completely invalid. She agreed with the assessment that Portland was not a city terrorized by war, and argued that he could not deploy the Guard there. Therefore, she blocked the deployment of the Oregon National Guard. Deciding to get cute, Trump then tried to nationalize the California National Guard, federalize the National Guard in Florida, and ship them over. He started the process of sending about 300 over. This issue resulted in an immediate appeal from was it the state of Oregon, or was it? It was both the state of Oregon and Portland, back to Judge 𝐍𝐤𝐜𝐴𝐤, saying that he was violating her order. Now, strictly speaking, and I mean by the strictest interpretation, she was not. But what the prosecutor said here was, look, he's behaving like a 14-year-old who's doing an end run around what he knows the rules are. She gave explicit reasons why the National Guard was not to be deployed, and since they happened to be talking about the Oregon National Guard, that was where her instructions went. Gavin Newsom then joined the petition in Oregon, claiming that it was his National Guard and Trump had no right to federalize them and send them to another city without his permission. She expanded her order explicitly and said under no circumstances were any National Guard from any state to be deployed to Oregon, and that Trump had clearly violated her previous order. She has given this 14 days. Trump has said that he is appealing this decision. This is, I believe, going to go to the Ninth Circuit. The problem is, whoever wins at the Ninth Circuit is going to file an immediate appeal to the shadow docket at the U.S. Supreme Court, which has thus far been giving Trump just about everything he wants. That means there is a decent chance, probably higher than decent chance, that Trump will eventually win this. If he does, I foresee significant problems in the coming future, but let's deal with the problems just over the next few hours. At any rate, for now, the current standing order is that no guardsman from any state can be deployed to Oregon for the next 2 weeks while she considers the case. This is a temporary restraining order. She has not decided whether ultimately he will be allowed to deploy them or not. But the argument was made that allowing them to be deployed while she makes her decision would cause harm to the city, and that therefore there should be a temporary restraining order until she makes her final ruling, and she agreed to that. Meanwhile, Chicago Mayor Brendan Johnson has signed an executive order today prohibiting ICE and other federal agencies, talk about ICE primarily for now, from using city property for immigration enforcement. Okay. This includes city streets, city parking lots, and city buildings. Presumably may or may not include courthouses, depending on whether they are district or state courthouses. But this would offer some form of protection, at least for anything that is owned by the by the city of Chicago. It appears as if he's trying to get this issued statewide. If he does, there may be a very big problem. There may already be a very big problem because we'll get into it. Johnson has said that this order is aimed at, quote, reining in this out-of-control administration. He has also had the city of Chicago join Illinois' suit against the Trump administration's deployment of the National Guard. So that is another state that is suing against this deployment. He is also encouraging local businesses and city organizations to safeguard their rights. They have made signs that are very nice. They're actually metal signs with posts and the whole 9 yards. And the sign says ICE is prohibited from entering this facility and using it, using the premises for immigration enforcement. They are giving these out to any business that wants one. All right. This is a city telling the federal government that it cannot use its facilities. My suspicion is the first argument that is going to be used is the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution. Fortunately, I don't think there are any lawyers left at the Federal Justice Department who actually know how to spell supremacy, so they're not going to figure that out. The AI will let them know in time. The next problem is that as of this moment, it appears there is a standing order to arrest any members of ICE that go onto city property. The reason we're having this problem is because A, these members of ICE tend to be poorly trained, and B, they are deliberately instigating, which means they will deliberately use city parking lots and he was explicit, he said no staging, no arrests, nothing having to do with immigration enforcement. So now it is against local law for the federal government to come in and, quote, do its job. Now, we can argue whether or not it's really doing its job or not, but hopefully you can see wherein the problem lies. If the state, the judge in the Oregon case, Judge 𝐒𝐤𝐜𝐴𝐜, one of the things that she pointed out was, look, you can only deploy the National Guard under two circumstances, and that's insurrection and rebellion. That's it. That's it. And neither are happening here in Oregon. So now you have the city of Chicago saying ICE is prohibited from using its using any city facilities. Now, this is just a city, but if you drop the Supremacy Clause, which basically says that states cannot override federal law, and cities cannot override federal law. So drop the Supremacy Clause for a minute. It is possible to interpret this as an act of rebellion or insurrection. So while I don't necessarily disagree with what he's doing, I'd like to point out the order signed just 2 hours ago could be the justification that Trump is looking for that Judge Karen 𝐒𝐤𝐜𝐴𝐜 specifically said he did not have, at least in Oregon. Whether or not the state is going to follow suit, we don't know. Keep in mind, he's prohibiting ICE and other federal agencies. That's all federal agencies, FBI, DEA, anything like that. It's only from immigration enforcement. He's not barring them from doing anything else, but it is outlawing the federal government from doing its job. I'm not entirely surprised by this, but this is an unprecedented move in this culture. It's also not, again, entirely unexpected, but that's why we're going live now. And again, in Oregon, there's no issue, but the first thing that Trump should think of is the Supremacy Clause, because he may win on that, but that's not what he's interested in. He's interested in instigating. And there was an interview with a former general who was the head of the National Guard under Obama, who said that Trump is lying about all of this, and this is deliberately just to intimidate U.S. citizens using the military, and that's all it is. We'll read that interview in just a second. Having said that, it's very hard to know where this is going to go. If it ends up getting up to the Supreme Court, they're probably going to side with Trump, not because he's right, but because that's what they do. At any rate, Johnson has said that private establishments can partner with us to make it clear that it's private property, and ICE cannot enter establishments without a valid warrant. True, almost always ignored. Wow. Okay. So that is the city of Chicago. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has confirmed that they are undertaking a, quote, new operation in Chicago. This is as of today. We believe 300 National Guardsmen are being trained for whatever this operation is. They have not said what it is, but they have said that they expect deployment by the end of the week. That's all we know, is that there's more deployments continuing. Also, let's see, Governor Greg Abbott, Texas Governor Greg Abbott today has volunteered 400, actually I think he did this yesterday, but what he said today is at issue, volunteered 400 of his state's troops to be deployed at Trump's discretion. He has literally said, Donnie boy, wherever you want them, they are yours, and the state of Texas will pay for them. Trump issued, he did yesterday try to get them to be deployed to Portland once the California troops were stopped. Trump tried to get Texas troops into Portland, and the Portland judge there said no troops from anywhere under any circumstances. Again, that is now under appeal. I am delighted that it's under appeal, in as much as that means at least Trump's following the order for now. He's been known to neglect his fair share of orders. If he neglects this, and if Oregon decides to use its own police or National Guard to defend, that's going to get interesting. Having said that, right now, at least, he's appealed. Abbott has, as I said before, volunteered 400 of his state's troops to be deployed at Trump's discretion. When it failed yesterday to have the troops deployed to Oregon because of the judge's order, Abbott took to Twitter and suggested that he may deploy the troops in a state regardless of whether or not he has federal support. This means even without an order from the federal government, Greg Abbott may, in order to assist states that are in need because they're war zones or whatever, may deploy the Texas National Guard to another state without the permission of that state's governor or without any orders from the federal government. This would likely be viewed as an invasion of one state by another. The fact that Abbott even suggested that this was a possibility is stunning. Abbott has a tendency to say really stupid things, so I'm not taking it all that seriously. Having said that, everybody's doing stupid things right now, so the fact that he has even suggested deploying the troops himself to another state where he would have no authority is mind-boggling. Even without Abbott's cooperation, Illinois has argued that deployment of Texas assets to Chicago would also be in excess of constitutional and statutory authority. They are denying troops, they're planning on denying troops from anywhere. As of this moment, Illinois has not yet made the injunction. Oregon has. The Pentagon appears to know this and be planning something, quote, new for, it is believed, Chicago, for which they are training 300 troops as we speak. Meanwhile, Homeland Security Kristi Noem has been doing her part by going to the rooftop of one of these ICE facilities and doing a photo op from there, where she was recorded telling all of the ICE officers that the protesters were after them, were after their families, and wanted to kill all of them. That was Kristi Noem in her photo op at the roof of one of these ICE facilities, tamping down the escalating tension that is currently going across the country. We have some photos. All of these are from Portland. This is one of the protests. We believe this is from the 28th. Also, this was earlier that night. And a growing sentiment. Chicago is attempting to put tensions at ease by setting up specific times for the protests, saying that they can go from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. The idea being to get people off the streets because ICE is deliberately targeting them and deliberately attempting to instigate. In fact, this is a picture earlier, and we had talked about the deployment of gas from a helicopter. We don't know if this is that incident, but a helicopter basically landed in the street, deployed gas. You can see, and one of the things that most of the judges have said, and the judge in Oregon said, look, these are protesters. There's a difference between protesting and starting a violent insurrection. Those are two completely different things. Obviously, Trump doesn't understand the difference. Basically, if you were inside the Capitol building illegally on January 6th, you were trying to overthrow the government. If you are outside an ICE facility holding a sign, you're protesting. Those are the differences. At any rate, we will see what Pritzker does in response to the mayor of Chicago banning any ICE from using government buildings and asking private entities, businesses, so on and so forth, to consider doing the same. That's where we stand. I will keep you up to date. We have more information and images, footage from these protests on our Discord. I hope you will join us there. And if you like our coverage, we do try to, especially when things get complicated, try to sort them out so that you understand what's going on, who the players are, and have an accurate view of the state of the union, which is interesting right now. So we appreciate all of you who support us, become a member, and or join the Patreon. So we will be back. I have to say, given that around midnight they've been filing things in emergency orders, the Judge 𝐒𝐬𝐜𝐡𝐨𝐥𝐚𝐬 actually had to do her order over the phone and was apparently livid when she found out Trump was sending troops from California. And she's just like, look, we may have been talking about the the Oregon National Guard, but I meant all that. Jesus. So that's where we stand. Thank you all for joining us, and our next scheduled show is tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern in time. We will see if we make it till then. So I'm not placing bets. Thank you again for joining us. Have a good evening.